Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Labor Day is done, but there is not labor. That is the driving story in the United States of America in 2011. Jobs. Labor Day, not a celebration of our work, but in fact, a great concern that there is not work. The White House, changing its predictions for 2012, now says that it expects unemployment in this country to remain above 9% throughout 2012. Right now, it's a little higher than that, 9.1. That means no improvement, despite the fact that people have dropped out of the workforce seeking jobs, and therefore the number would even be higher if they were included. Last Friday, we received the August jobs report, and it was a stunner. Wall Street has been responding ever since, not only because of the jobs environment here, but also because of the financial crisis in Europe that is also part of the jobs crisis there. I welcome now a member of Congress. Nan Hayworth is representing New York, the 19th Congressional District. However, she's also a member of the Republican House leadership. And I welcome her tonight because it was a Labor Day weekend. And Nan, good evening to you. I trust you and your family had a happy time, but you left Friday afternoon aware of the fact that America just took a blow with that jobless report. Your members in the House of Representatives, were they alarmed? Did they express their alarm these last days about that jobless number from August?
Well, as you know, John, we've all been, presumably most of us, as have I been, we've been in our districts for the past month, and this jobs report was stunning, and I'm going to guess that, and as you know, they revised June and July down, and I'm going to guess we've actually probably lost jobs in August, which would certainly be consistent with what we're hearing from our constituents in so many parts of the country. And this is the natural issue of decades of policy that have left us with a federal government that dominates our economy to far too great a degree.
Dominates the economy, dominates the workforce, and dominates the demand on the revenue,
yes,
our taxes.
Precisely.
And that's the debate now that we see in this super committee that will be reporting by Thanksgiving. But I want to stay right here on jobs. The president's making a speech on Thursday. Mm-hmm. Joint session of Congress. That means that Nan will be there, all the members of the House and all the members of the Senate. I'm not sure. The Supreme Court may be there, and the military as well, represented similar to the State of the Union. What do you expect to hear from the president, Nan?
Well, what I expect to hear is somewhat different, unfortunately, from what I would like to hear or prefer to hear. What I expect to hear is, I think, what the president previewed in his speech in Detroit, which was to endeavor to lay blame for our stagnation at the feet of Republicans, specifically congressional Republicans, those of us presumably in the House, and challenging us to join him in still further federal spending that will not accomplish what we all desperately need it to do.
Let me get this right. The president's blaming the Republicans in the Congress. Mm-hmm. The president had the 111th Congress for 2 years. Am I doing a recent history here? All right. The 111th Congress was dominated by the Democratic Party in the House and the Senate. The president was given what he asked for in Obamacare and Dodd-Frank and a number of other pieces of legislation. He didn't get energy. That's true. He was stopped there by his own party. Mm-hmm. The president is now blaming the Republicans who have been in control of the House since last January. That's right. It. 8 months, right?
Right.
And it's your doing. Okay, I go along with that. But is there logic to it?
I don't, but
is there logic to blaming one House for 8 months when he's been in office for 2.5, almost 3 years?
This is unfortunately, and I think so many of us would have expected better of the president, would have hoped for better from the president. This is pointing fingers at anybody but oneself. This is a failure to take responsibility. As I understand it, the president sent an email to his supporters with the subject line, frustrated. Now, what inspirational president, you'll forgive me, does that kind of whining?
The facts are, the way the government works, as I understand them, Congresswoman, is that we can't move on this jobs program if the president and the Democratic Party don't move with the Republican Party. Is there any suggestion that he'll look at reducing regulation, reducing taxes, and also establishing some certainty? Because I spoke with the president of the American Bankers Association this evening, Frank Keating, former governor of Oklahoma. He made it very clear that the regulations on small and medium-sized banks in your district are restraining credit. They're holding people back from making loans. Earlier, I spoke with Gary Becker, a Nobel laureate from the University of Chicago, and he says the uncertainty climate is restraining the growth of the marketplace, that the private competitive markets are restrained by federal regulation. I summarize all this. Nan, you know the answer to this. The president's not going to cooperate, correct? He's going to stay on the blame the Republicans and not consider that his policies for 2.5 years have contributed to this regulation and uncertainty.
Very regrettably, that seems to be the case. Now, he did, as you know, say that he would rescind a certain EPA regulatory trend in terms of ozone, in terms of ratcheting down the ozone restrictions to levels that would be almost impossible to sustain. But that still leaves, I mean, to express, as he did separately, the goal that they would rescind $10 billion worth of costly regulations in a $1.3 trillion deficit, federal deficit economy with 9% unemployment. That's nothing. That's nothing in a $14 trillion economy.
So there's no conversation going on in Washington. This super committee, how can it act if the president is pointing fingers before the jobs program? It seems futile to think that the Congress can move if the president will not.
You know, the unfortunate, there are many unfortunate aspects, John, obviously, but there is common ground that we have with President Obama. And the tenor of my comments tonight, I will say, is substantially influenced by the speech that he gave in Detroit, which I left a very sour taste in I'm sure more than one person's mouth. But we have tremendous opportunities with the tax code, John. We have tremendous opportunities with regulations. The president, in principle, has embraced both of those ideas. So we do have a lot of opportunity to work cooperatively with him. That is my goal. I would like to see this. I'd like to see President Obama succeed. I don't think he will unless he radically changes his point of view and his attitude toward his counterparts in government.
They passed the 111th Congress, before you were in Congress, Nan, they passed $1 trillion stimulus program. No one can now assert what good that did, but we do know that it built up the deficits. At the same time, the president has preached this trope of millionaires and billionaires pay their fair share, which is discouraging investment and making money hide itself. Exactly.
Right.
Nothing's going to reverse that.
No, we're driving working capital out of the country.
It's exactly what happened in 1933 and 1934, by the way, but we're not doing ancient history. All right, the president's going to blame the Republicans on Thursday night, and the Republican response?
The Republican response, I anticipate, will be that we have laid out and will continue to develop a program of regulatory reform and relief. We have selected a budget. We passed a budget through the House that lays out a responsible program for reforming federal spending structurally, as well as providing for immediate cuts. We have advocated for modifications of the tax policy that would make it fairer and flatter and relieve the tremendous burdens that are caused by an overly complicated tax system. We are here to create jobs. We recognize that that is our primary and most pressing responsibility in this economy.
The president right now, the Democrats, as you read them, they're looking at a partisan resolution. That's the election of 2012. I mean, I do not see a solution here short of that election.
Sadly, John, sadly, and President Obama could change that. He could change that with one speech. But I do feel that many people, including not only Republicans, but people of more independent bent, are coming to that conclusion.
Nan Hayworth represents 19th New York. I wish we had good news for you. We don't. I mean, the facts are you can't ignore that jobs number on Friday. It probably means that we're in a recession right now. That's probably what it means.
We have a toxic climate for job creation.
And we have regulations that are still being written. We have banks. Tens of thousands of jobs are being laid off in Manhattan right now. That hits Nan's district because the commuters into your district are losing their incomes now.
And that preceded the administration's announcement that it is going to go after the banks now.
Nan Hayworth, more good news from 19th New York. I thank you very much, Congresswoman, and I look forward to your applauding the president's bipartisan lines on Thursday night at the joint session of Congress for dinner.
I hope to have that opportunity.
I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.